everyone, welcome back to In the Alley. My name is Cody. I'm glad you guys are back for another video. It is the final team preview for 2025. The Vegas Nighthawks round us out, and this is a team I have completely overlooked. In my mind, I have thought Bay Area was probably the team to beat. The more I've looked at this roster, the more I've seen the talent returning. I have the Vegas Nighthawks as the Indoor Football League national champion. Spoiler. We'll get into it. But yeah, that's a bold claim, right? So I just see the talent. I see what they have returned compared to the other people who they have signed and not re-signed, and we'll talk about it. I think they are going to be a force in the West. Let's go take a look. All right, so before we get into the players, the schedule, all that, we've got the team information. Another team that's only been around for a couple of seasons, but a couple of seasons. But the Vegas Nighthawks, located in Henderson, Nevada, where they play at Lee's Family Forum, home of the Henderson Silver Knights of the AHL, and obviously parent company with the Vegas Golden Knights of the NHL and stuff like that, all night related. Capacity of 5,567 people. Their head coach is Mike Davis, who has turned this team around in the matter of a couple of seasons. No indoor football championships to speak of, but in the last 5 years, they are almost to 500. Last season, they finally broke through, won double-digit games, made the playoffs, and lost. 2-point conversion doomed them, and Arizona went on to win the national championship. Before that, 5-10 and 6-10. So overall, this team is turning a corner. The talent that they have from last season to this season is pretty much back when you consider the starters and things like that. We still need to see the player cuts and everything as the season is just a week away. So, well, not Vegas as they start in 2 weeks, but you know what I mean. But overall, Vegas looks like they're going to be a force. Let's go take a look at the rest of it because we've got a lot of stuff to sort out with them. All right, schedule popping up for the Vegas Nighthawks, and I admire this schedule. Now, it is very jam-packed there in the middle. You have 3 games, your second bye week, then you have 10 games, your final bye week, and then 3 games to round it out. Now, let's talk at the very beginning. You were on the road twice. That can be brutal, but as we have said, we do not know to the extent of how good teams are after probably the first month of the season. So at San Diego, at Jacksonville, so you're going all the way across the coast on a short week, and then you're coming all the way back home on another short week to play San Diego again, and in between that's Jacksonville. That could be a fun stretch for them in the sense of short weeks. You play a team twice, so you really get to know them and their film. Jacksonville, a very big wild card in their own right. For me, it boils down to if you can get out of there sweeping San Diego, beating Jacksonville, you start out 3-0. This team was the last undefeated team last year. Kind of went down the pooper after that, but they finished 11-5. But I believe they were 7-0 or 8-0, somewhere in that range before they lost their first game, and I think they lost it to Tucson last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's correct, but I can't honestly remember. I've done too many damn team previews right now, so. After that second bye week, though, they're at San Antonio, and then they're home against Northern Arizona, home against San Antonio. So again, another home and home sandwiched between another team. And then, again, at Arizona, sandwich team with San Diego for the third and final time, home against Arizona. So it's like you get to play these teams almost back to back, and then, another team kind of put in between there. At Northern Arizona, home against Bay Area, home against Iowa, at Tucson, final bye week, at Bay Area, home against Northern Arizona, home against Tucson. Now, as I've said in other previews, I do not think Northern Arizona and Tucson are going to be good enough. They can be good. They can pull an upset or two. Against this Vegas team, I think they sweep them. I do. I think they sweep it all. And they play Northern Arizona 3 times. They play Tucson twice. And they have Iowa in there. That's 6 wins. I think they get 6 wins. San Diego is... I'm not going to say they're bad. Nor are they like the superpower. But at the same time, I think San Diego can be got. Maybe 2 out of those 3. We'll see. But like I said, I like how this schedule kind of plays out. Their final 2 games for Vegas are at home. and they do have a bye week right before their final 3 games. They play Bay Area, so that's kind of some short travel. They only play 2 Eastern Conference teams, so I do kind of like that. Overall, 10 games in a row kind of sucks, but most of them are Saturday and Sundays, so it's not like you're doing any crazy stuff. But let's go take a look at that roster. Let's take a look at their signings, re-signings, 3 big questions, and get on out of here. All right, roster popping up here, and I am putting the target on Vegas's back as champions, because look at the amount of players they re-signed from last year, and they were pretty good last year. 2-point conversion away from going to the Western Conference Championship, and if Arizona wins the national championship like they did, Vegas might have done the same. We do not know. Starting it off with last year's most valuable player, Jerome Johnson, back for another season, and then signed as well James Cahoon and Jayden de Laura, which that's a fun name. I am a huge college football junkie, and I listen to the Cover 3 podcast. Kudos if you guys do too. And they were fawning over Jayden de Laura when he was at Arizona. So I like that signing, especially if he does stay there and become the backup to Jerome Johnson. We'll see. Running back Antonio Wimbush back for another season, and Devontae Jackson signed over from West Georgia at D2. Quentin Randolph, Jonathan Johnson are re-signed for another year. I believe that is the correct Jonathan Johnson from last season. If it's not, Jonathan Johnson is probably a top 5 common name, so I'm thinking it is. And then big signing here, Tamorrion Terry from Duke City and Jacksonville, NAL talent. A couple seasons ago, he comes over, was with Jacksonville for a couple of games. He ended up getting cut. Duke City picked him up. Very, very good wide receiver. I expect some big things from him, especially when you see, down there at the very bottom, Caleb Hawley is on the PUP list. CJ Wyndham is in the UFL. You're going to need another wide receiver to step up. I think Terry's going to be that guy. Phoenix Sproles signed. I believe he is related to Darren Sproles, former K-State wide receiver, running back, and just more of the same from him. So we'll see what Phoenix can do. It's nice to have some little brotherly relations when it comes to Devontae Sapp Lynch, Phoenix Sproles, and there's been like a couple of others if I'm not mistaken. Jalen Robinson, Daquan Dudley, Brandon Gray, CJ Jefferson round out that wide receiving core. Shout out to Daquan Dudley. He commented on one of my videos. I see you. Offensive line, this is a big thing as well. Kevin Toot, Moses Mallory, they had accolades last year. Kevin Toot, I believe, was all rookie team. Moses Mallory, I believe, was second team all indoor football league. Just more of the same. Jeremy Martin comes over from Duke City. They signed Desmond Bland. Desmond Bland was signed by the New Orleans Saints last season. He had stints with San Diego. I think there's another team that I'm blanking on. He was in the AFL with Nashville, I believe. And yeah, he is very, very good. That offensive line looks very, very tough, especially when they still have some players over in the CFL, UFL, whatever the case could be. Like, they have talent, and they put them in higher ranking spots. Defense, it's pretty much back. Maurice Jackson, Claude Davis, Lorenzo Hernandez, Lee Autry, all re-signed. So your defensive line's pretty much set. Not necessarily, but what can you do? Adam Plant comes over from the Massachusetts Pirates. I believe he was traded, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe he was he traded? Was he traded to Green Bay and then he got signed? I can't remember. He was traded at one point. Mayan Ahanatu, I believe that's how it's pronounced. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Dominic Peterson round out that defensive line core for the rookies. Mikel Calhoun is re-signed, and Jamel Williams comes over from the Duke City Gladiators. And then on the secondary, James Caesar, Darius Williams, Malik Hausman are all re-signed. Eugene Ford comes over from Frisco in Massachusetts, and Kendrick Skladny Jr. and Rome Weber, they're re-signed they're not re-signed, but they're signed from the Sioux Falls Storm. So again, a lot of experience. A lot of freaking experience on that defensive side of the ball. They returned practically their entire defense, practically their entire offense, minus a couple of wide receivers. It's insane. Gleason, Sprewell, Justin Terry, Lamont Wade round out your secondary. It's just a stacked roster, man. It is. And when you consider Caleb Hawley's on the physically unable to perform list, Roderick Chapman and Bryce Murphy are on league injured reserve. And really, at any given point, we haven't even talked about Corey Woodruff in the CFL, Bryce Hampton, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, all the accolades that he had last year, all rookie team. second team all indoor football, I believe, because I don't think he was first team, but I think he was second team all indoor football. He was a beast. He was a beast, and he is in the CFL right now. Tucker Horn, Latavius Brinney, the people before Corey Woodruff were in the CFL before, and I believe Cameron Dukes won a Grey Cup, so kudos to him. CJ Wyndham, Jamal Johnson, Mr. Harriol are in the United Football League, so just, again, if you have that opportunity, you move up, and that's exactly what Vegas is doing with a lot of their players. So, stacked roster. This is the reason why they have a target on their back. They are trying to run it back. I think they are all in for this season. Let's go take a look at our signings, re-signings, departures, 3 big questions. All right, key signings, re-signings, and key departures. We're going to start it off easily. Jerome Johnson, 2024 IFL MVP, second team all indoor football league quarterback position. 146 completions, 2,029 passing yards, 45 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, so that's a little high. 182 rushing attempts, 824 rushing yards, and 39 touchdowns on the ground. So this man almost had 3,000 total yards between rushing and passing. Like I said, over 80 total touchdowns. I mean, there's a reason why he was MVP. I personally had Sam Castronova. I thought he was going to have it just based on 75 touchdowns or however many passing touchdowns he had, but Jerome Johnson beat him out, and kudos to him. He deserves every bit of it. I'm not mad or anything. It's just those were the two neck and neck the entire season, and I think the rushing really helped him there. 39 rushing touchdowns. I'm still playing. I know I have a highlight on one of my previous videos, him just taking off down like the right sideline. I think it was against Arizona. There was like a 45-yard run he had, and it just plays in my head. The dude is just quick. The dude is quick as a flash, man. I am hoping he has an encore performance for the ages next year, or this upcoming year, I guess. To see what he was, a backup in Green Bay behind Myler. I mean, they were kind of playing against each other when they were both in Green Bay, and to see what he is able to accomplish with Vegas, I did not expect it. So he has proven a lot of doubters wrong, and I guess I'm one of those doubters. He did very, very well. Wide receiver Tamarian Terry, Duke City and Jacksonville last year. 53 receptions, 853 receiving yards, 24 receiving touchdowns, 4 kick returns, and 48 yards. No accolades, and he played on 2 teams that didn't make the playoffs. One team only won 3 games, one team only won 5. And I think he really kicked it into gear when he went to Duke City. He was a very good bright spot in the offense. The offense was all right, but they just never really had a quarterback that could really get anything until Hassan Rogers was there. I mean, they had Joe Mancuso for a game, but Tamarian Terry made do with what he had. You had the revolving door of quarterbacks that Jacksonville had last season, Connor Blunt getting injured early on, and then he ended up getting released. So Terry got released, and then eventually Connor Blunt did too, but Terry got released and then got over to Duke City. So that's a very good stat line based on what he was able to accomplish with the offenses that he was in. So I really look forward to more of the same with him. Like I said, Caleb Hawley is still on the PUP list by the time the season starts. He is probably wide receiver number 2, just kind of depending on how that wide receiving core kind of shakes out. Finally, for the re-signings, Mikel Calhoun, 65.5 total tackles, 13 for a loss, 7 sacks, 3 pass breakups, second team all-IFL linebacker, and all-rookie team. Very, very good linebacker. I know he missed a couple of games. He was put on short-term injured reserve for a little bit, a couple of stints, I believe, last season, and he was still able to do everything that he was able to do in just 12 games. So if he has a full, clean bill of health, I know I say that for a lot of players, but if he does, I mean, those numbers could be pumped up. You give him, 4 extra games, 5 extra games? I mean, he easily could have had probably another 30 tackles. Maybe even more than that. He probably could have gotten close to triple digits. And I know he didn't get an interception, but he was blitzing like crazy. 13 for a loss, 7 sacks. I mean, he had an interception, forced fumble recovery, blocked kick, something like that in there. His stat line's taken off. He's going from second team to first team. So there you go. I look for more of the same. Like I said, that defense is stacked. I see him getting those numbers again. Key departures, this was tough. There were not a lot of key departures. That's the reason I have Jorge Reyna here. He is over with San Antonio, 34 completions, 427 yards, 8 touchdowns, only 2 picks, 36 rushing attempts, 129 rushing yards, and 4 rushing touchdowns. I could have put a couple of other guys like Tarian Taylor over here, or Tareen Taylor, excuse me, or however he is pronounced, but Antonio Wimbush is going to carry that load. CJ Wyndham is still, I guess, technically with the team, but he's in a different, league. He's moved up. Caleb Hawley's on the PUP list, so it's like they didn't really have like too much talent. You could put, was it Reggie Lawson or Reggie Henderson on here, or Marquise Lawson? I don't even know if they had 100 yards receiving, and I don't know. Trayvon Van is over with San Diego. He was serviceable for a little bit. I put Reyna on here to figure out who the backup's going to be for Jerome Johnson. We'll see, because like I said, Jerome Johnson, I believe, did get benched for a game last year, and Jorge Reyna came in and played. And he played when Johnson got hurt a couple of times and was able to come back either in the next game or later in that game. So we'll see what the backup quarterback position looks like for Vegas, although you hope Jerome Johnson plays every single game. So still sad to see Jorge Reyna go. He is a veteran in this league, and I consider veteran anyone that's been in here for more than a year. So defensive lineman Gabe McCoy, 44.5 total tackles, 10 for a loss, 3.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. He switched between linebacker and defensive back depending on who was there, who was where, and who was what, depending on the week. However, everything was so stacked. Everything is so stacked and coming back. They've gotten so many defensive linemen. Mikel Calhoun, if he stays healthy. Is it really a key departure? Not necessarily, but he did play very well. So kudos to Gabe McCoy, everything that he was able to accomplish. But like I said, is it a key departure? Kind of splitting hairs in that regard. But yeah, he was a very good player, all things considered. 44.5 total tackles. It's pretty good. Finally, defensive back Jericho Flowers. He is over with San Diego. 34 total tackles, 2 picks, 3 pass breakups, and then 36 kick returns, 597 return yards, and 2 return touchdowns. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that they are going to miss. Jericho Flowers, he did play some secondary, but he was a very good kick returner, and I have no doubt they will have someone return kicks. I mean, you obviously have to, but at the same time, I think you'll have someone that could replicate those numbers, whether it's one of the rookie wide receivers coming in. I'm looking at Sproles, just based on Darren Sproles, or if it's any of the other guys in the secondary or anything like that who want to return kicks. I think Antonio Wimbush returned a couple of kicks too, if I'm not mistaken, but not too many. But that's pretty much where we're at. Like I said, they didn't lose a lot. They re-signed quite a bit of players. So with that being said, there's just not a lot of key departures to choose from. So let's go take a look at 3 big questions, and we will wrap everything up. All right, it is time for 3 big questions. Question number 1. Vegas is all in. Fitting, right? Are they the front runners for the title? I said yes to start this video. They have so much returning talent. They have the reigning MVP. They bring Tamarian Terry over. They have Antonio Wimbush, who's been through this league for 2-3 years now. The offensive line has been all IFL, all rookie team. They are re-signed for the most part. They have a guy that played in the freaking NFL or got a tryout with the NFL with Desmond Bland, and I know he was with San Diego, I think, protecting Nate Davis. And you need a good offensive line to protect Nate Davis. So I'd say Vegas is all in. I do. Not to make the pun with gambling, but they are. I think this is their, we need a championship year. We're going to go all in on this. We've returned all of these starters, all of these players, and I know not all of them will make the cut. I understand it. But with the talent that you have signed just with those players, and we'll see who makes that 25-man roster, I think Vegas is really champing at the bit here. So I look for them to be very, very formidable. Question number 2, what will we see for Johnson's encore MVP performance? Like I said, I wouldn't say it hinges on Caleb Hawley coming off of the PUP, but if you have that, that's just another dynamic wide receiver. It's just another dynamic wide receiver. We know he's going to run the ball. They're going to do RPO with Antonio Wimbush or whoever they have in the running back position. They will run jet sweeps. But with Tamarian Terry, Quentin Randolph is back. That offensive line, it can be a wall. I think Jerome Johnson can have another MVP caliber season. Will he win it? I'm not so sure. That's why we play the games. But it looks like he is gearing up for yet another performance, and it all kind of hinges on how the defense does. If they shut down other offenses, or is Vegas going to blow teams out? Are they going to have to rely on Johnson's arm and his legs? I mean, how does this offense perform based on who else is gearing up against them? So I know it's kind of, vague to say that stuff, but again, until the games are played and we get a kind of a look at how each team is styled, we just don't know yet. But I do think Jerome Johnson is gearing up for that MVP times 2. So we'll see how it goes. Final question number 3. The defense is loaded, but is there a thing as too much talent? And again, there's only 8 positions on the field on either side of the ball, either offense or defensively. And this could be a thing where some players don't start, whether or not you're carrying a couple of players in the secondary that started with a different team. And I'm not calling anyone out. I'm just using examples. Someone like Rome Weber, I still don't know how it's pronounced, Kendricks Gladney, someone like that who might not start for Vegas. Maybe they want to go start somewhere else, and then you're looking at this roster turnover. There could be a thing as too much talent where maybe you need to cut these guys, and again, I'm not justifying them. I'm just using them as examples. But it could be something where it's like, we need to bring in some rookie talent because we know who the starters are going to be. If there's a learning curve, whatever the case could be, injuries, you're just looking at that. Could there be too much talent? There could be. It hasn't really stopped a bunch of other teams, though, but it's a nice mix of veteran and rookies. I think that's really what gets you deep into the playoffs, is if the rookies can come on and the veterans are just as good as they were the previous season, if not better, you really have something bubbling there. So I think for Vegas, is there a thing as too much talent? Could be. What they have right now and what we'll see of the 25-man roster could justify whether or not they make or break this season. So I do think Vegas is a big front runner for the championship. I do. I think Bay Area is right there. Arizona, San Antonio, San Diego. I mean, the West is stacked. If Northern Arizona and Tucson can pull together some talent, pull together some wins, you got some parity going right there. So I'm very interested. But let's go wrap everything up and get on out of here. And that is it for the Vegas Nighthawks preview. That is it for the 2025 Indoor Football League team previews. And like I said, I am excited for how this season's going to go. We are a week away from the ball getting kicked off, and I am ecstatic. I got one more video coming out sometime next week. I'm going to enjoy this weekend because, I got some plans. It's going to be fun. But it has nothing to do with this. It's my family stuff. But anyway, with that being said, I'm going to take off here, guys. I've got one more video, like I said. That's going to be my predictions and all of that stuff, playoffs and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to kind of try and sit down when I can and try and crank out to see how many wins each team is going to have and kind of present that. So I will have that sometime next week before the games kick off. And then next Thursday, we start with the previews. We start with the gambling. We start with all of that stuff. And if I get to wear my cool captain's hat and my flamingo shirt. So we go from there. Until then, guys, I'm going to take off here. I love and appreciate every single one of you. If you have taken the time to watch all 14 of these, pat yourself on the back and go and do something better with your life. Jesus. I'm kidding. I love and appreciate you guys. I appreciate the time it takes to watch these and get through these and stuff. I know it can probably be a grind, but I do. I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to watch every single one of these, or even just this one. So with that, taking off here, guys. I'm just excited for this season to start. So with that, I'm going to take off. I've said that 3 or 4 times already. That being said, see ya.